Hello and welcome to today's webinar and fireside chat on Kaiko Systems. Our topic today is turning frontline operations into actionable insights that bring value from day one. My name is Fabian Fussek. I am the co-founder and CEO of Kaiko Systems. I'm excited to introduce our solution to such a large and diverse audience today. A little bit about myself. I've started Kaiko Systems together with my co-founder and CTO, Eddie, in October 2020. Our vision was and still is to bring a standardized data set to the maritime industry at scale. Prior to founding Kaiko, I have been building digital products in various industries, such as mobility and finance, as well as a successful startup in the real estate industry. With me today, I have my colleague and co-host, Nick Vaughan. Before joining Kaiko Systems, Nick has spent 12 years with Lloyd's Register. Initially working as a new construction surveyor in Japan, building oil tankers, bulk and ore carriers and gas carriers, he then moved into the existing ship side of the business, relocating to China. There, he was responsible for dry dockings, special surveys, refits, repairs, and port surveys throughout Shanghai and Nantong. He spent a further 5 years in the head office in London, with initially working on digital products and then on the commercial side of the business, responsible for sales and key account management. I'm very excited and honored to also welcome Andriy Bezrodny, Technical Director of Columbia Ship Management. With his background of over 19 years in technical management, 9 years of which he has spent with Columbia Ship Management, he is an expert in his field. Towards the end of today's session, he and I will have a little fireside chat about his decision to roll out Kaiko Systems across his fleet, as well as with his experience so far. Before we jump into the main body of the webinar and the presentation today, I want to encourage you all to engage with us today. Use the Q&A tab to ask questions, share your thoughts, and also be sure to take part in our live polls. Our agenda today covers a range of topics around digitization and technical management. We will start with a brief introduction into Kaiko Systems before we move on to dive deeper into topics like ensuring data consistency and reliability, how to make full use of your vessel health data, integration into existing workflows, how trials and full fleet rollouts work, and then end with the aforementioned fireside chat with Andriy. The problem that Kaiko Systems is tackling starts on board of the vessels, with the frontline workers, the seafarers, that today still rely on outdated tools and often inadequate legacy software to do their jobs. After hours and hours of inspections, maintenance, and overall manual work, they are required to sit in their office and spend another hours and hours on documenting and reporting all of the data and information that they have gathered, but often they have to use formats that make data lost and unstructured and have to rely on desktop-only software with insufficient UX to report and upload their data. The resulting information is then more often than not really useful for the shore teams, and therefore a lot of work and a lot of time has been wasted. This all leads to a lack of visibility and insights, which in turn leads to efficiency loss in shipping companies. I think we can all acknowledge that reports from the vessels are mission critical to ensure readiness for port state controls and inspections. However, shore teams drown in noise and lack clear signals of where and when a vessel might need support and further work. Therefore, companies are often surprised by incidents, port state control deficiencies, and so on and so forth. Kaiko Systems is tackling this problem with our solution across 3 main pillars. The first of which being digitized workflows. With our mobile-first, on-the-job guidance, we are empowering crews and make it easier for them to do a better job. For the shore teams and superintendents, we provide visualization and communication through our cloud-based dashboard that not only shows vessel health of an individual ship, but also across your whole fleet and makes it easy for you to identify the highest signal and most important information. To round this all off and really bring it all together, we provide verification and analysis through our plausibility checks, corrosion detection algorithms, and other AI-powered reliable insights. Today, dozens of technical teams and in total over 400 vessels trust Kaiko Systems. We are very happy and honored that we have been able to convince so many internationally renowned shipping companies to not only try, but use and embrace Kaiko Systems as part of their core technical management software stack. And also today, we are covering various both standard and custom use cases in a flexible way that really caters to the needs of individual shipping companies. Starting with the already mentioned pre-port state control self-assessments that reduce the risk of deficiencies and detentions, going to visual hull and equipment reports, covering all kinds of safety inspections, as well as custom checklists, and the topic of our previous webinar, SILE 2.0 pre-vetting. With that, I'm handing over for a more in-depth overview of Kaiko Systems to my colleague, Nick Vaughan. Nick, stage is yours.
Thanks, Fabian. Now, let me share my screen. I will just run through a couple of slides before I jump into a more in-depth demo. So Fabian gave a very broad overview of the system and an overview of the various different use cases that can be implemented within Kaiko. And I want to jump into a bit more detail about some of those use cases and also how the system can be implemented on board for your fleet. So we set up each vessel specifically using your vessel's plans and your company procedures. So in this way, every vessel is set up specifically based on the structural arrangement, the equipment on board in association with your relevant inspection procedures and associated checklists and forms. And we do this in a way to minimize the change for your seafarers on board the vessel. In this way, they're carrying out the same work that they would do before using Kaiko, but they are now equipped with a digital tool that enables them to plan, execute, and report their inspection and maintenance work whilst they're out on the job on board the vessel. We do this in a way whereby we move away from generic checklists, which might be paper-based, either in a folder on the bridge or on a desktop computer on the vessel, and make everything vessel-specific in the way that the crew can then be guided through the inspection whilst they're completing it, can collect the required evidence, and can then complete the reporting whilst they're on the job, moving away from additional time spent after physical inspections spent in the ship's office, typing out reports, adding information into legacy systems, and really removing that part of the inspection and reporting process that really doesn't add any value. And what we're looking at here is the mobile side of things. So the crew on board the vessel are equipped with a smart device, so a smartphone or a tablet. And this is used by the crew every day when they are completing this routine inspection or maintenance work. The app is running offline on the device. So in this way, they can really take the device with them anywhere on board the vessel, be it doing a ballast tank inspection on the forecastle deck or checking the bilges in the engine room. The device doesn't need to be connected to the internet whilst the crew is using it. And in this way, they can really use it as their smart assistant. What we can see on the left-hand side here is the guidance that we can provide in the application, for instance, for structural inspections. So we can see here, we have the positioning diagram. So this enables the crew to be informed where they need to position themselves or what area they are inspecting. We can show the example picture. So in this way, the crew can see the condition last time the inspection was done. And in this way, they have all the information that they need in the palm of their hand when they're completing this inspections. And this is critical to having a standardized data set across your fleet and ensuring that inspections are completed thoroughly. So in this way, when we look at, for instance, structural inspections, we can ensure that all areas or all critical areas are inspected and they are done in an objective way that's then repeatable across your vessels and across your fleet. Photos are taken live in the application, as we can see in the middle screen here. And in this way, the crew don't upload pictures from a library, but have to take the pictures live whilst they're on the job. And therefore your shore team can see the representative condition and the actual condition of the vessel at the time when the inspection work was done. And on the right-hand side, we can see the guided rating. So again, trying to make this process as objective as possible by guiding the crew through the rating. And as you can see underneath, having a standardized set of annotations. So removing the need for the crew to write cumbersome free text explaining what they've seen and allowing them to very easily, whilst they're out on the job, tag any issues or information that they find that's relevant to that area of inspection, and therefore giving you a data set that's standardized across your fleet and can be queried in order to find, manage, and resolve these issues. And as we can see, just a quote from one of our happy users, I like the pictures and deficiencies are fast to collect and the reporting is automatic. It's easy to use. And that really, in a nutshell, sums up the seafarer's experience using Kaiko. Now, as I mentioned, the app is running offline on board. Your seafarer is completing the relevant inspection or maintenance work and the reporting whilst they're on the job. And at the end of their watch or the end of their inspection, they can go back to the ship's accommodation, connect the device to the onboard Wi-Fi, and then all of the data is compressed on the device and automatically uploaded to the cloud. And at this point, it's immediately visible to your shore team. So they will be notified either in the system or by email as they prefer. And immediately they have the latest information about the vessel and the inspection or maintenance being completed. So we can see on the left-hand side the overview that they get in the web-based dashboard, and they can log into the dashboard from anywhere in the world. So this is particularly useful for superintendents where they may be traveling or potentially remote working, etc. They don't need to log in via cumbersome VPNs. They can have immediate access on any device just through the web browser with an internet connection. And from this point in the dashboard, they can have that 1,000-foot view of the fleet, and from there zoom in to an individual vessel, an individual component, an individual inspection of that component, and see how that's changing over time. So we have a very digital and dynamic view of the fleet condition with all of the detail that's relevant at the inspection level. On the right-hand side, you can see the gallery view. So here where visual inspections are being completed on board the vessel with pictures being taken by the crew, these aren't then buried in reports or as attachments, but are really presented at the forefront of the dashboard, which allows your shore teams to have a very visual overview and a holistic overview of the vessel's condition. And in this way, for instance, in advance of a vessel visit, your shore team can review the vessel's condition and really have an understanding for themselves what the vessel's condition is like, and therefore plan their onboard vessel visits more effectively. And in the middle, we can see our standardized reporting. So any of these data points within the system can be configured into a report. We have standardized reports already configured in the system where this inspection data can be extracted with one click. And at the same time, we can set up company-specific reports within the system. So have your specific company templates. And in this way, you don't need to deviate from the current forms and checklists within your safety management system. Again, minimizing the need for change, but allow you to collect the data on board using the device, having it verified by the system, and still populated and extracted into your specific reports with one click. And as Fabian mentioned, we also verify and analyze the data. So this is adding additional levels on top of just the data collection and visualization that we've seen already. So on the left-hand side, we can see the AI-based corrosion and condition evaluation. And this is particularly useful where your crews are doing large inspections of large coated surfaces or structural inspections. So particularly applicable for cargo hold, cargo tank, ballast tank, main deck inspection, etc. So as we've seen in the application, they are guided through the rating to gain a level of objectivity. And in addition to that, once these inspection photos are uploaded to the cloud, we can then run the evaluation on them to give an objective rating of the extent of coating breakdown or extent of corrosion. And I'll show that to you in more detail in the dashboard later. And on the right-hand side, we have our plausibility rating. So again, it's critical to understand that the actual inspections are being completed on board as you would expect. And this, as we see it today, is a current huge gap in the process. We have a large number of processes, forms, and checklists, etc., that need to be completed by the crew on board in their day-to-day work. However, often these are either just completed with ticks on a paper checklist or ticks in a box in a system without any real, let's say, evidence as to what's actually been done on board. And with our plausibility ratings, you as the shore team can have an additional level of assurance that these checks and this maintenance on board is being completed as you would expect. And again, I can show you that in more detail in the dashboard later in the presentation. So with these tools, not only can you streamline your onboard operations, but you can have a higher level of oversight and assurance from the shore team to ensure that the work is being completed on board as you would expect, and that the vessel condition is as you would need it to be. Now, at this point, I'd like to jump into a live demo of the system and show port state control observations and deficiencies are an issue, and by the looks of things, happening on a regular basis. So, this again is a really good use case for a tool for Kaiko, being able to structure those pre-port state checks. So where you want these checks to be completed on board on a regular basis or in advance of visiting certain ports, we can structure that within the application, allow the crew to complete these checks, in a timely fashion, in a structured way, and then present that data to your shore team so they can really ensure, yes, these checks have been completed and the condition of the vessel is as I would expect it to be in advance of the port state inspection. So having run through the app side of things with those use cases, I now want to show you how that data is represented in the dashboard. So let me move on here and we'll start with structural inspections. So I'll show you how this works in practice. So first, I'll show you the app side of things, which is running here on my device in the office. So here, I'm running the app on the tablet. You can see here. And I'm just screen sharing with you so you can additionally see the view that the crew would have when they're using the application. So the app is system agnostic. It runs on iOS, Android, and Windows devices across smartphones and tablets. And in this way, you can then really choose the hardware and the form factor that's required for you and your fleet. As I mentioned, this is running offline. So what you're seeing today is running offline, and this enables the crew to take the device with them anywhere on board the vessel without any additional investment in terms of connectivity across the vessel. Now, I'd like to run through a few of the use cases that Fabian outlined at the beginning of the presentation and go into those in a bit more detail. So as I mentioned, we'll look at the app side of things first, and later we'll then see how that data is represented and is used by the shore teams via the web-based dashboard. So let's run through a couple of use cases now, starting with visual inspections on board. So we'd start with our hull and equipment module here. And as I mentioned, we set this up using the vessel-specific plans. So in this way, we have the structural arrangement of the vessel from the GA plan. And you can think of this in terms of having eyes on board the vessel. So where you want to see the condition of the vessel as it is today. And you can use this for structural inspections, so cargo holds, cargo tanks, ballast tanks, etc. Or at the same time, you can use it for overview and general inspections of the vessel. So it might be that you want to see the condition and cleanliness of your engine room or of certain areas of accommodation and the galley, etc. Particularly of interest for port state inspections, ensuring that not only is the structure of the condition of the vessel satisfactory, but also the cleanliness, orderliness of the vessel is as you would expect it to be. So we'll start with the structural inspection first and look at a cargo hold inspection. So in this way, we set up the cargo hold as I mentioned, using the GA plan, and we break this large structural area down into smaller subsections that can be inspected by the crew. And in this way, we can structure the inspection for the crew to ensure you have a consistent inspection across your vessels, and at the same time, guide them through this inspection process so you get a holistic overview of the condition. So as we see here within the cargo hold, we have the tank top, the bulkhead, between deck pontoons and other structures such as the ladders, etc. And all of this content that you see within the application is completely customizable. So in this way, it can be supplemented and augmented either with your specific company procedures or with specific points relevant to the structural arrangement or condition of a specific vessel. Now, if we look at the tank top inspection, for instance, We then break this down into a number of inspection areas. And again, this can be customized for your specific needs. And for each specific area, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the crew can see the last rating. We have the positioning diagrams. So again, providing this guidance information for the crew, guidance text, and then the example image, which is the picture that was taken last time the inspection was completed. Now, in this way, the crew have all the information they need in the palm of their hand. And at the same time, they can see the condition last time the inspection was done. So they can see, has it changed materially? Are there any issues that I need to be particularly taken care of? Once they've done their visual inspection, they can then take the photo live in the application. So the camera launches. I'm obviously not on board a vessel, but I'll take a picture of our lovely model ship in the office here. So they can take the overview picture, and they can add as many detailed pictures as they want, if we're looking at particular structural arrangements or particular issues that they find. Once they've taken all of the necessary pictures, they then move on to the guided rating. So we can see here a rating of 1 to 5 with guidance. And if they find an issue, they can rate this a 2 or a 1, which automatically creates a finding in the system. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the standardized tags or annotations. So if we were to say we found corrosion and maybe some cargo residue, it's very easy for the crew to very quickly tag that. That's automatically creating a finding, notifying the shore team for follow-up. And then it's very easy to click continue, move on to the next inspection, check the relevant area, to run through the process one more time, take a photo live in the application, so the actual condition of that area, move on to the rating, guide it through the rating, continue, and they can complete the structural inspection, be guided through this. At the same time, I mentioned it can be used for overview inspections. So here, for instance, we can set up your engine room. And again, we're not looking at the detailed running hour-based inspection and maintenance covered in detail by your PMS system, but really looking at where you want to still have a visual overview of the condition of your engine room. So it might be that you've had issues with insulation and lagging that has fuel oil on it, etc., or cleanliness of the bilges, etc. We can set up the relevant inspection points in the system, and again, guide the crew through these inspections so they can see what the condition should look like. They can start the inspection. Again, they need to take a picture live in the application of the condition as they see it. And again, can rate the condition and move on. So in this way, a hull and equipment module can be your eyes on board the vessel, guiding the crew through the structural inspections, or having a general visual overview of the condition of the vessel and its cleanliness, etc. On that note, I'd like to launch one of the polls. So the first poll today would be just to see, based on the audience here, are you using smartphones or tablets on board your fleet already? So you should see that poll pop up on the screen now. And as I just prepare the next area of the demo, I'd like you to answer that poll, and we'll have a look at the results. Okay, we'll just give that another couple of seconds to get the answers in. Okay, so the results are in, and let me publish those so you can see those. So as we can see, currently, we can see that actually a lot of the participants are not currently using mobile devices on board the fleet. And I think this is currently due to the fact that a lot of legacy software doesn't have mobile first applications, etc. But really, when we look at implementing a mobile first solution like Kaiko, the investment for mobile devices is very small. As we mentioned, it can run on any device, so you can choose the hardware that's suitable for you. It then allows you to really leverage this mobile first tool to really gain the benefits across your fleet. And as I just showed you within the application, the structural inspection or hull and equipment visual inspection side of things, I'd just like to quickly launch our second poll. So what are the most common problem areas for visual inspection that you see across your fleet? And you'll see multiple choice answers here pop up on your screen. So again, I'd just like you to take a few seconds to answer that, just so we can also get a better understanding there. Okay, we've still got some answers coming in here. Okay, I'll give another second for the answers to come in, but I can see from the results already that it's heavily skewed towards cargo holds and tanks and water ballast tanks. So these structural areas of the vessel that aren't the easiest areas for the crew to inspect. Let me just publish the results there as well, so we can see, cargo holds, tanks, and water ballast tanks. And that's completely understandable. And at the same time, using a tool like HICO can allow you to structure those inspections so you can make sure that you're really getting a holistic overview and an accurate representation of the condition of those areas, critically important for preparation for dry dockings or class inspections, etc. So you can really understand the condition for yourself and really make a plan to manage that accordingly. Okay, at this stage, I'd like to just move on to the next area of the use case. So we'll look at the safety inspections here. So again, focusing on the application now. Later, I'll show you the dashboard side of things so we can link that whole workflow together to see how it can make your operations more efficient. So within our safety module, we set up your safety inspections using the safety plan and set up every item of LSA and FFE as it appears on board your vessel. So in this way, we can have a very granular inspection, and every item is set up in the system as per the location on board your vessels. So in this way, the crew can really go around the vessel deck by deck. They can have extracts of the safety plan or other guidance information on the device as they go. And for each piece of equipment or each item of equipment, they have a series of checks that they need to complete. It might be one check, just inspect and test, or you can have more detailed inspection procedures where they need to check multiple items. For safety, you can set up mandatory pictures for critical items. However, based on the large number of checks in our experience, we often find that a binary check works more effectively here. So we can see, for instance, that the crew can easily mark it as okay. However, in the case of the fire hydrant, if they find a problem, they can mark it as not okay, and it's then very easy for them to report a finding in the system. So again, they have to take a picture for the finding to document the condition as they find it. And again, we can see this is marked as not okay, so automatically creating the finding. And we can have a standardized set of annotations or tags underneath. So in this case, we could say damaged, part missing, continue, and move on there. And in this way, it's then very easy for the crew to move on with the next inspections, completing these inspections as they go deck by deck. So we've seen an overview here of the safety inspections set up specifically using the safety plan. And at the same time, we can assign tasks to different members of the crew on board. So maybe some of these items, are completed by the safety officer. So in this way, we can select the relevant user on board. Those tasks, when we set them up, could be assigned to that user. And in this way, we can have crew-specific task lists that they need to work through. So maybe some tasks are assigned to your navigation officer, some to your chief officer, some to your safety officer, etc. So we assign those tasks. And again, they then have the deck-by-deck view, so they can understand all of the equipment that they need to complete on that deck. And again, as I showed you before, it's very easy for the crew to work through these inspections. And as we can see, when they mark a number of items okay, they are still prompted with randomized picture prompts. So as I mentioned, we don't require a picture for every item of equipment. You don't need a picture of every fire extinguisher. At the same time, the randomized picture prompts give you that additional level of assurance that these checks are being completed on board. It's very easy for the crew to take the picture. The item is marked as okay. They continue and can move on. So in this way, it's very easy to make sure that your crew are on top of these routine safety inspections that are scheduled on a weekly or monthly basis. And you can have individualized task lists based on your different crew members on board to make sure that they are completing their tasks on time in accordance with your procedures. So the third area or use case that I'd like to show you within the application is our checklists and company forms. So what we looked at with the visual inspections and the safety inspections are these routine inspections that are happening on a periodical basis, and we can structure those inspections, provide guidance to the crew in the application, and allow them to systematically work through those inspections. And at the same time, within our checklist module, we can set up occasion-based checks. So this might be that you have, for instance, pre-arrival checks before going into certain ports, or pre-port state control inspection checks, etc. Or maybe you have some customized checks that need to be completed on board and reported in your forms. And that's where our company forms module comes in. And what we can do here is set up summary reports. So in other words, consolidating tasks into one specific set of checks, where this might need to be output in a specific format, or allow the crew to complete specific reporting. So in this case, I can show you an example here with a stevedore damage report. So this can be set up. And at the end of your, before you depart the port, if your crew are doing an inspection of the deck equipment and find some damage, it's very easy for them to complete this custom report, collecting all of the information in the application. So whether that's text, date, photos, etc. So we can see the crew can very easily work through this form. And as I can show you in the dashboard, this can automatically be populated into your company's custom report, which saves the reporting time and allows them to complete this inspection and reporting in a timely manner, i.e. before they depart the port. So we can see how that data can be collected. And at the same time, we can show you how it can be combined into a specific report format in the dashboard. Now, before I leave the app, I just had one more poll that I wanted to launch. So this is looking more at the pre-port state control side of things, and that preparation, as I mentioned, can be set up within our checklist module associated with the company form. But just to get an understanding from the audience of the importance here, so has your fleet had port state observations or deficiencies within the last 12 months? So another poll just to get some feedback and some insights from the audience whilst I move on to the next area of the demo. Okay, I can see the results coming in now. Okay, so let's publish those results so we can see, well, in summary, yes, port state control observations and deficiencies are an issue, and by the looks of things, happening on a regular basis. So, this again is a really good use case for a tool for Kaiko, being able to structure those pre-port state checks. So where you want these checks to be completed on board on a regular basis or in advance of visiting certain ports, we can structure that within the application, allow the crew to complete these checks in a timely fashion, in a structured way, and then present that data to your shore team so they can really ensure, yes, these checks have been completed and the condition of the vessel is as I would expect it to be in advance of the port state inspection. So having run through the app side of things with those use cases, and now I want to show you how that data is represented in the dashboard. So let me move on here and we'll start with structural inspections. So as I mentioned, when we looked at the hull and equipment module, the app can be used to complete structural inspections or to give this visual overview of the condition of the vessel. So what we can see here in the hull and equipment module is it's very easy to get an overview of the vessel's condition, or health as we call it, based on these rated inspections that are rolled up. And at the same time, see how this trend is changing over time. So, in this way, you can understand how is the condition of the vessel changing? Do you need to take some action, in advance of the next docking or maintenance period, or how are things changing? Is this as you would expect? So you can visually see these trends and therefore take action accordingly in a timely manner. And what we can see here is it's very easy to have a structural overview of the condition of the vessel. So in this case, we're looking at the ballast tank inspections. And as you can see, it's very easy to have this structured overview. So the crew don't need to spend time labeling all of the photos or uploading them into a folder structure. This is all done automatically in the system, so it's very easy to have this structural visual overview of the condition of the vessel. And at the same time, you can start to see the history. So again, we had the visual overview of the trend, but you can also see the history of an individual inspection or individual component and see how that's changing over time. So for any individual inspection, you can see the condition. And as I mentioned, even though the photos are compressed when they're uploaded from the tablet, you still have a very good, let's say, overview, and can zoom in here. And you can also see the historical condition. So as these inspections are completed on a periodical basis, you can see how this is changing over time for an individual component. So as I mentioned, being able to zoom in on the pictures and also see the history here. So if this was done on a monthly or quarterly basis, you could start to see these historical inspections and really see how this is changing over time. And at the same time, as I mentioned with our corrosion algorithm, where we're looking at large coated surfaces, as you can see here, we have some corrosion on the surface here. And as I mentioned, this can be analyzed within the dashboard. So we can then, let's say, give an objective rating of the extent of coating breakdown or extent of corrosion. So this can be run automatically within the dashboard. And we can then see here under the corrosion analysis, we have an objective rating of the extent of corrosion, etc. So this can then be used to supplement the rating that your crew are giving in that rating process, and really give you another, let's say, independent data point based on the corrosion or extent of coating breakdown, etc. So here we were looking at the visual inspection side of things. And as I mentioned, it's then very easy for your shore team to either prepare for vessel visits or to see the actual condition of the vessel for themselves in a structured way. And as we can very easily see here, you have a very structured overview of the vessel's structure, and can zoom into any section to see the condition of that section. So that's your, let's say, visual overview of the condition. So as we saw, collecting that data in the application, guiding the crew through those structural inspections, or more, let's say, overview inspections, and then presenting that information in a very usable and actionable way to your shore team. Now, on the safety side of things, again, for the crew, for the shore team, it's very easy to have an overview of the, let's say, up-to-date status of the safety equipment, so the LSA and the FFE on board. There's a large number of routine inspections that are being completed on a weekly and monthly basis, and it's important to not only understand the condition of the equipment, but also that these inspections are being completed on time and are not going overdue, which can cause issues down the line. So in this way, it's very easy to see the status. Here we can see we have some issues and some items that are not okay and require action. And also we can see the status. So again, we have some inspections going overdue. And in this way, you have that up-to-date, up-to-the-minute status that you can then follow up with the crew and ensure that these inspections are completed and that any issues with the relevant equipment are resolved. So again, we have the overview based on the types of equipment, and we can then look at the individual items within there and see each individual item or each item of equipment if you need to go to that level to understand. And this, another area, as I mentioned, that ties in very closely with the safety inspections is the plausibility and the analytics. So as I mentioned, we're collecting a large amount of metadata when these inspections are being completed. And therefore, we can analyze this metadata to give an indication of plausibility. So, as I mentioned, elevating these inspections from just being a tick in the box or tick on the paper to really understanding, have these inspections been completed as I would expect, and giving you that additional level of assurance. So we can see here for each individual inspection that's been uploaded, we can see whether they're plausible or implausible. And we can look at both a good, let's say, and bad example there. So focusing on the good example first, we can look at this safety inspection. So we can see the components that were inspected, any issues that have been reported, summary of the picture prompts as well. And in this way, even just from the activity plot here, we can see, so time on the x-axis, distance on the y-axis, we can see each item that's been inspected. And the system analyzes all of this metadata to give an indication of plausibility. I has the required effort been exerted, and the items inspected, data collected as you would expect to complete the inspection. And as we can see here, it's plausible. Therefore, you can understand, okay, this inspection has been completed as I would require it to be. Therefore, my safety equipment is being inspected. But at the same time, we can look at, let's say, a bad example and somewhere where you would want to take some immediate action. So you can see here, we have another safety inspection that's been reported. And again, in this case, critical items that have been reported, but we can immediately see, okay, this is what we would call a couch or a cabin inspection. And the system analyzes all of this metadata and again, can notify your shore team that the inspection is implausible. And you can then immediately follow up with your crew to understand what happened, why this inspection wasn't done, rather than waiting potentially weeks or months down the line for issues with port state control or class or flag inspections, whereby they find issues with critical safety equipment that was previously being reported as okay on a regular basis with those ticks in a box. Now you can really understand for yourself, is it being completed as you would expect? So those were our hull and equipment and let's say our safety use cases. So we saw the flow from the app into the dashboard, also elevating that with the plausibility and also with the corrosion evaluation. And the next area I want to look at is how you manage the findings effectively. So we saw how simply findings can be reported within the application. So this is the crew reporting issues on board. And now we want to see how those can be actively managed by the shore team and the crew to ensure that they're resolved. So we give a very clear summary here in the dashboard of any issues or findings. You can see the active and rectified findings. And for instance, for any specific finding, you can see the detail of the finding here. So we can see in this case, we can see what was reported by the crew on board. The lashing boxes here being heavily corroded. And then the shore team, for instance, can set a deadline. So, okay, this needs to be resolved by the end of the month, and then can add additional comments. So all communication with the crew can be managed within the application. So the shore team can communicate via the dashboard, and at the same time, the crew can respond directly via the application. And therefore, you can have this context of communication, making sure that everybody is informed and you're managing these issues appropriately. So we can say, let's say, new lashing boxes to be ordered. This way, not only will the crew be notified of the comment and action this accordingly, but at the same time, where you have multiple stakeholders shoreside that are using the system, they can also have a clear overview of what's happening and can see that this is being effectively managed. So maybe where you've got technical and marine both dealing with certain issues, they can have the latest status here rather than this information being buried in specific email chains or communication outside of the system. And at the same time, it's very easy to extract this data as a report. So where you need to have a report of this specific finding, this can automatically be populated. So in this case, we can see the as reported condition with all of the information that's been recorded by the crew. And later, once this is resolved, you can have the full report showing the rectified condition, again, with the information and the full history of the communication, etc. So again, the crew or shore team don't have to spend time creating reports for this. This is all done automatically with the click of a button. So we can see there how your findings can be managed effectively, ensuring that they are resolved in a timely fashion. And the other area I just wanted to show you, or the last area, was the company form side of things. So this is where I mentioned before, where you maybe have custom reporting requirements or custom forms. As I mentioned, the data can be collected in the application by the crew on board, and at the same time can be populated into any format. So we had a brief look there at the stevedore damage report. And as you can see on the screen here, we can have a number of summary reports where this information can be consolidated. So for instance, maybe on the safety side of things, where the crew are checking the inventory of certain items. As we can see here, it's very, very easy where this inventory checks need to be done. These can be checked in the application and then automatically populated into a specific format on board. And again, we have versioning control. We can add your company-specific forms or company-specific information, etc. Or as I mentioned as well, where we have very custom forms like a stevedore damage report. So in this case, where certain information needs to be collected on board the vessel in advance of leaving the port. And we can see how those checks that we saw in the application, text, signatures, photos, dates, etc., can automatically be populated with the click of a button into a specific form here. So again, you can have your company specific form in accordance with your SMS, with your company logo, form numbers, revision numbers, etc. So really minimizing the change to your safety management system, but allowing you to leverage modern mobile-first tools to collect this data in the system, manage it, and also complete your reporting requirements with one click. And we can see how this data is very easily populated into the report. So I hope that gives you an overview of the functionality of the system and specifically applying that to use cases for your system. Just quickly wanted to run through a couple more slides now we've done the demo, just to give an overview of how this works for not only a trial, but also rolling the system out across your fleet. So whilst I'm just doing this, just to do the last poll, wanted to get some feedback from the audience to understand, when we look at specifically safety inspections, are you reviewing the results of routine inspections across your fleet? I'll just give a second for that poll to come in, and I'll launch this, quickly run through an overview of workflow integration, trial, and rollout. Okay. Okay, and as we can see, yes, you are regularly reviewing it. So in this way, using Kaiko can allow you to do that more efficiently and have a better overview of what's being done on board in the actual condition. Okay, just then, before we move on to the fireside chat with Andre, I just want to quickly give you an overview of integrations, trials, and rollouts. So we can either integrate directly with an ERP or PMS system. So for instance, with Hanseatic Soft's Cloud Fleet Manager, Certica, or a number of other systems, we can integrate directly, allowing the data collected in Kaiko to be pushed directly into those systems. Or even where you're using a legacy PMS system, that currently has a very offline or manual workflow for the crew, implementing Kaiko can also allow you to leverage the benefits of our mobile-first system, and using our company forms can allow you to then consolidate that data into the required forms, which can then be attached into your PMS system. So again, removing the time and the need needed for your crew to complete these reports, but maintaining your current system with the reporting as per your SMS. And as we can see, based on our experience working with a number of clients, even with the workflow integration on your legacy system, your crews can save a huge amount of time using Kaiko to complete this inspections on board and removing this reporting time, having one-click reporting within the system. So next, we look at how you move forward with the trial of our system. If you like what you see and this is something that you would like to move forward with and test for yourself, we have a very structured trial process where we really want to give you the maximum insight to the tool in the shortest time possible. And this just gives you a very visual overview of the trial process. So normally we run trials for a month with one of the vessels in your fleet. You provide us with all of the plans and documentation for the vessel and your procedures, and we set that up and launch the trial on board the vessel, supporting your crews and your shore teams to actively use the tool, give you the insights that you need in the shortest time possible. We work very closely with the crew and the shore team throughout the trial process, having a mid-trial review halfway through the trial to review what's been uploaded and provide additional guidance to complete the trial objectives in the shortest time possible. But in our experience, maybe there is, as we've mentioned here, some buffer either side, but within 1 month, we can really give you the insights that you need to make the decision you need to then move forward with a full fleet rollout. So, to running a successful trial, it's key to keep the trial as short as possible to remove the overlap or duplication using multiple tools. Really provide constant feedback throughout, both from Kaiko and your shore team to the crew, so they can understand what's happening and what they need to do. We work very closely onboarding all of your shore team and working with them to understand how the system works, how they can leverage it and get the maximum insights. And internally within the company, it's very important to communicate management buy-in and the benefits of the system. So people understand, okay, there is a short period of duplication during the trial, but really once the system is fully implemented across the fleet, we're looking at time savings across the organization. And when we then move from a successful trial to a full fleet rollout, we can, based on our experience, recommend a few key areas. So providing multiple devices on board to allow work to be done concurrently, selecting standard processes across your fleet where you can get a baseline use case for implementing Kaiko and building on, then digitizing additional checklists, bringing more work into the tool to maximize those efficiencies, and later also incorporating shore team inspections and audits, so allowing your shore team to also benefit from using a mobile first tool. And we can easily implement the tool remotely. As I mentioned, we don't need any hardware installation on board, either ship side or shore side, just need a smart device, a mobile phone or a tablet on board, and we can do a fully remote implementation. So it's a plug and play solution once that device is on board. And based on our compression within the system, it's very efficient, independent of what connection type you have on board, whether it's fleet broadband, VSAT, using a mobile 4G or LTE connection. And as I mentioned, we can really individualize the process and the system to match your processes and workflows, and also integrate with your systems as well to provide that data automatically. So I hope that's given you an overview of how the system works, how it can be implemented for you both through a trial and full fleet rollout. And now I'll hand back over to Fabian for the fireside chat.
Thank you very much, Nick, for this interesting overview. Moving on, we are excited to welcome Andriy Bezrodny, Technical Director of Columbia Ship Management, to a brief fireside chat. Hello, Andriy.
Good morning, Fabian, and good afternoon to my Singapore colleagues.
Thank you so much for joining us today. As you are one of the first ones to embrace digital inspections, can you share some insights behind your decision to do so?
Well, as you can probably understand, such organization like such Columbia Ship Management, we are constantly screening the market for the all new projects because we're really focused on digitalization as all other ship management for sure. So basically we check number of the products, and we end up with the Kaiko because from my personal point of view, the good things of the Kaiko that you are not offer only the ready product, you are offering the platform for the ship managers, and this platform can be fulfilled with the wishes of the ship managers based on the management system. So saying this, you are able to, for the moment, you are able to adopt your system for our management system, not like vice versa, that we have to adopt something from our management system to your platform. So this was actually the main topic why we decided to go with Kaiko from the first step. The second thing is, which actually was quite important for us, sometimes we decided to stop this normal practice from the 20th century when the crew print out the checklist, go with the checklist with a pen, just marking done, 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 because for the moment, I think everybody will agree with me, it's becoming to the tick box exercise. And having such digital inspection platform, first of all, from my point of view, and based on the feedback from the crew, it's become really very attractive for the crew members. I mean, they like to work with new technologies, with the tablets on board, not with the single papers and the pen. Therefore, that was actually our main decision why we start proceeding with digital inspections here.
And when you're introducing new software, as you mentioned, you often do, what are typical hurdles or concerns that you face? And can you maybe share an instance where Kaiko helped you overcome these, or where you did not have these problems that you usually have?
Okay, each time when you start to implement something on board of the vessels, for sure, and in the office as well, you always face some kind of resistance from beginning, because always new for the people is always, they say, we don't know how it will be work, probably it's quite complicated, we don't have time for this one. But first of all, once they start using this basic, what we decided to go, the opinion of the crew change vice versa for sure. So they understand that it's much better and much attractive for them to do this exercise, which automatically download, and the technical superintendent basically can be the witness of the inspection in a couple of the minutes after the synchronization. The main point, which actually quite important here, and this is a training process, and this training process should apply not only for the crew, to the crew members, but also for the office personnel, because as you explained previously and your colleague explained, this is like the two-way movement. So the office and the vessel, it should be work on the both sides, because we both, I mean, we all understand if the vessel start carry out digital inspection and this one is not properly controlled monitoring from the vessel, from the office side. So basically it's totally meaningless for the both parties. Therefore, as I say, we are considering as the training of the personnel on both office and the vessel is paramountly important in order to start running the system properly.
Absolutely. And can you share any anecdote or story about a feature or an aspect that turned out to be a positive surprise?
You know, I'm not ready to say some fun story about the implementation of the software on board of the vessel, because so far we run only 8 ships, more or less. But what I'm here, and this is like the common opinion, I don't know, maybe this is some fun. The people is always asking, the Kaiko is a Japanese maker or not? I mean, this is Japanese vendor or not? This is, I mean, for the many people, Kaiko sounds like very Japanese name. I don't know why you chose this one, but there is a number of the people who approach me and say, is it the Japanese vendor, or this is, I say, no, these people from the Europe actually. But this is the main actually. Yeah.
That is part of our strategy to enter the Japanese market. Kaiko was actually originally an underwater drone that was digging up data from the bottom of the Mariana Trench. So we found it quite appropriate that we are collecting data from the oceans and made that connection, therefore. So to move on to the next questions, what was the feedback from your team and the crews on Kaiko systems? And do you have any example that stands out?
Look, as I said already, we are just on the beginning of our journey, very long journey, as you can imagine, because the decision of the company was to implement basically the platform on the entire fleet from the beginning. So far, as I say, we have quite positive feedbacks from the vessel. The people, as I say, they are really very interesting about the process itself. We get already a number of the advices and suggestions to create additional modules, except the port state control modules, which we are developed together actually, which we also understand will be quite useful for the crew and for the office. So far, as I say, because this is a digitalization process and the crew in general like everything new, I believe I will not open any big news that the shipping industry is always behind of the technology, maybe 20, 30 years, especially the merchant vessels. Okay, I'm not talking about the offshore, but merchant vessel for sure, where manage the vessel sometimes 15, 20 years old. So this is also the fact which we need to admit. When you bring something new, any new technology, for sure, the all crew members are happy to follow up this one, and they're happy to see that any development has come from the office side.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And maybe as a last question, you mentioned the past and the long durations in ship management. And of course, also you have so much experience in this industry. As we look ahead, what do you think are the key challenges for technical management in shipping as a whole in the next few years? And can you maybe share any predictions?
Well, we can talk about the hours actually. Look, I tried to be very simple here. I believe my colleagues will agree. So basically the general ship manager is always a balance between the office and the crew and the vessels. As per basically the general expectation, we will have for the next 10 years, we have a lack of the officers around 40, 50,000 on the generally on the market. So we can expect the lack of the personnel, and moreover, we are expecting actually the really significant downgrade of the crew level because well-known reason. So therefore, we need to compensate this one from the office side. So in order to keep some kind of the balance. saying that we have to compensate, we always start talking about additional resources in the office. I mean, this is absolutely reasonable. But what I try to say, in order to compensate this problem with the crew, for sure, the new technology, which are now coming around the world, which are assisting technical superintendent to control the vessel, not only from the office side and management system, but also, as you know, a lot of the big makers like the Wärtsilä and MAN, they produce actually now the 5 years program for the vessel when you just plug and play, and after 5 years they come on board, they make the general overhauling, everything, and they just start the engine and you are running for the next 5 years. So as I say, digitalization is moving ahead and now coming to the shipping business as well. And what is the most important, the people now recognize slowly that digitalization will help to the technical managers to compensate the problem on board of the vessel, to enhance control, okay, and therefore run the vessel smoothly. So this is actually the basic prospect, that a lot of the new technology will come. Maybe, I mean, if you can see where we've been 10 years or 15 years ago, when we have ABB with a very low traffic, and now the crew able to see the movement on board of the vessel. So if we combine in the simple words, the future of the shipping, for sure, digitalization, not because people like to invest money, because it will help us to manage the vessel properly. And this is actually will be appreciated for everybody, including the majors, and especially for the companies which are on the tanker ships.
Thank you so much for these insights and for your predictions. And I think this was also a perfect statement to end this session and the webinar today. Thank you so much, Andri, for joining us today and for this conversation. Thank you, everybody, for joining today's webinar. We do hope it was insightful and has encouraged you to also embrace digital inspection and digitization in ship management, both for people's and for business sake. And please do reach out to learn more about what we can do with Kaiko Systems to help you support your transformation as well. Again, thank you so much, Andri. Thank you, everybody, for joining today.
My pleasure. All the best.
And by this, we're ending today's webinar.